Alright, this is your creation. My name is Starseed Bey. How's everyone doing today? Today should be another interesting talk. Hence why it's called making a contract with Christ or the devil. I've been really kind of like thinking about how I wanted to present this. But at the end of the day, we really, honestly, we make more contracts than we're aware of in our lives. It's quite bizarre. It really is. You can make pacts with your personality. You can make pacts with friends and family. You can make pacts with ghosts and things like that. There's many different kind of contracts that we sign in our daily lives. I mean, even including a mortgage and car payments and things like that. It's really some kind of obligation that we feel we have to sign our rights away to gain something, right? We have to sign our rights away to gain something, to gain some kind of interest or some kind of I don't know, it'd be maybe like celebrity impact, right? A lot of celebrities always sign contracts trying to make the big bucks, right? So it should be quite an interesting talk. That's what we're really going to be kind of digging deep into. And pretty much, at the end of the day, are we supposed to make a contract with a creator, a higher power? If we don't, are we condemned? Is our soul condemned to the other side? And if we don't make a contract at all with our souls, does that make our soul lost in a realm that isn't attached to any creator at all? So this should be rather interesting. There's scriptures and some kind of other stuff that I'll be reading as well. So we'll see how this goes and see what the Spirit has to say about it. So if this is your first time watching me, I am on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, definitely like, subscribe, share out. I talk about many different things, from spirituality to things that are going on in the world, as well as just many different other subjects, controversial subjects, just like we're talking about today. I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/realtalk. Bey. So definitely like the page, share it out. If you have any questions, concerns, let me know. I'm also on patreon.com/Starseed Bey. Still working on the site, but it is there for you guys to check out as well. So making a contract. What really sparked the video was actually a couple months ago. I was watching, and I talked about this last video about that Sabrina show, Sabrina the Teenage Witch on Netflix. And they were talking about that you had to make a contract with God, or you had to make a contract with Satan or Lucifer, whatever it may be. You had to make a contract. If you didn't make a contract, your soul went into limbo. And this is what I was talking about a couple videos ago, is that you would go into this like forest, and there would be all these entities called the soul snatchers. And these souls that didn't make no pact, right, didn't make no contract with God or Satan, they would just be floating in the fourth dimension. That's basically what it was the fourth dimension. And they would constantly have to hide themselves away so they wouldn't be eaten. Because if they got eaten by the soul snatchers, then they got sent back to the abyss. So I found it really fascinating. And I was like, maybe there's some truth to that. I've been really studying a lot about the heavenly realms, just the many different layers of heaven. And it's talked about that in the Bible as well, talking about these different layers of heaven. And there's the plane that exists. There's that physical reality. There is the fourth dimension, that spiritual realm. And then there is the higher dimensions, the plane where our soul can freely create. I mean, I don't really know how to really present it, but it'd be like you can create and manifest and, just kind of be a dominion or a helper, like an angel, to help in creation. So there's many different layers So a lot of people end up getting stuck in this fourth dimension, and because they didn't make it kind of packed, I guess. Like I said, it's going to be interesting. I'm really still researching these subjects as well. But, it makes me wonder about, why people struggle so much in, discovering God or discovering the Creator, discovering Christ. And a lot of it, a lot of people just don't believe in it, or they lose faith, or they lose touch with the Creator. And a lot of times, they just don't know where to go to in life, right? They're uncertain about things. Even going into a church, sometimes you're just uncertain about what you're learning, what you're observing. Those who think a lot, and those who question a lot, it really makes you wonder, what are you partaking in? And then I'm trying to figure out how to put this into words. So, you're trying to figure out, if there really is a Creator, is there a place for me outside this reality? And sometimes a lot of people really have a hard time grasping that there is a reality after this one, right? A lot of people don't really feel there's past lives or future lives after this one. What about if this is it? That this is the only experience that you have, right? So many people focus on this physical reality, on this flesh here, and they think, that this image here is you. This is it. Like, this is the reflection of your soul, is this body. And that's never been the case at all. This is just a flesh of DNA, a flesh of genetics. But as a whole, what sparks this body, what sparks the life, is that soul. Is that soul within, and then the spirits, or that synergy that sparks life that surrounds us all. And it's funny too, because I've been really kind of studying about synergy and just the hidden energy, the dark matter energy that surrounds us daily. And I'm so very fascinated about it because, with all of this energy that surrounds us, there got to be a way to manipulate the energy, harness that energy. It's basically magic, but we do magic daily anyways, which is what I've talked about in previous videos. So I've been really learning and testing that. But as I'm testing that, there's so many people that don't even know how to get on a personal level with the Creator or with Christ, how to distinguish that. I have friends who used to be Christians and into the Bible and things like that. Then they lose their faith, they lose their touch with the Creator, they become an atheist, and then they just think everything is a joke. And that your body is just a mechanical structure, based upon whatever kind of brain pattern that you're using at the time. But that to me doesn't make any sense, because what distinguishes you is your soul. If we all were functioning by the brain, then we would all act the same in some way, shape, or form. There would be some kind of faction you'd be put in. Like, say if you use this part of the brain, you'd be in the blue team, and then if you use this part of the brain, you'd be in the red team, and then the yellow team, and so on and so forth. You would be able to distinguish, and you'd all be kind of a zombified state in those color forms. So that makes no sense. That totally blows science out the window, that there's something more to us than just our flesh alone. So there is a soul, and it's been documented, that when the body dies, that the soul, it's right in here, that the soul goes up and then exits through the middle of the forehead, right? The soul exits the middle of the forehead, and then the body dies. It's scientifically proven that there is a source within. So it really is quite fascinating. So with that being said, where does that soul go? How does that soul know where to go? It just kind of just shoots out and it goes into limbo land. Is there something that's waiting for us that guides us to where we need to go? I've talked about the soul matrix, and how I can be one soul attached to thousands and thousands of other souls, and that we're all experiencing something different. So as each soul from that soul matrix leaves, we attach back to that soul matrix, and then we continue to expand into creation and go into new bodies or intertwine into bodies together. I don't know. It's so very fascinating on those kind of matters. But you have to have some kind of foundation. If you're just in limbo, in La La Land, living in this physical reality, trying to figure out who you are, what you are, trying to figure out some kind of meaning or existence in your life, right? No kind of foundation. Like I said, Christ is my foundation in my life. Without a foundation in your life, and then all of a sudden your life ends, you would seem to be in a state of confusion. I would say you'd be in a state of confusion after you passed away. There's been so many testimonies of people dying, and then they go into this spiritual plane of existence, and then many people have said they've talked with God, they've talked with Christ, or character that look like Christ, and they feel that sense of divine love, the presence of a oneness or a unity with everything. And it's so beautiful. They say that it's so beautiful that you don't want to leave. But then this presence says, well, you got a mission to complete, or, that there's something that you need to do. It's not time for you to pass yet. So the soul is allowed to make that decision, be like, okay, well, I guess I can go back. Or they're forced to go back. I've heard some testimonies of people being forced to go back, be like, nope, not time for you to go yet. And then they go back into their body. So there is some kind of divine order for souls. We have some kind of mission here. I've always told people, that everybody is special in some way, that we have something to offer for everyone. We have to go through trials and tribulations in our lives for a reason. Sometimes we think, life isn't fair. Why are we going through this stuff? Why are we seeing our friends suffer or people around us suffer? There's a lot of reasons why people don't believe in a creator, because of all the crap that they have to go through. But, you really have to realize that those trials and tribulations are there for a reason, for the future, because you're going to have a destiny or something that is going to be, what would that word be? Something that is going to take place in the future, and it's a hard thing to grasp. I really had to question if there was some kind of destiny, if our soul is already predestined for stuff. And I've come to two conclusions that it's very true. We are destined for greatness, or we are destined of, my life could have been this way. And that's what I've really noticed, is that we are predestined for greatness, but we're also predestined for what ifs. And there's so many people that have the what ifs that happen in their lives. I should have done this. What if I would have kept with this career? What if I would have stayed with this person? Or, what if I would have went to a business relationship with this individual? Many different things, of like, they didn't even try any of those opportunities. They just kind of just bypassed and be like, well, I don't really want to do that yet. And then that opportunity passes them by. And then it leads into the what ifs and so on and so forth, I'm so very fortunate. Like I said, I woke up in 2010 and my life just changed. I really felt like, there just wasn't really much before 2010, much in my life. I was a really depressed person. Didn't know how to handle myself or carry myself. Really didn't have any kind of, future that I was looking into. I was just working and collecting and just doing my thing, being a father to my kids, and married and all that stuff, just being a family guy, and that was it. That's all I thought I had. We ended up purchasing this house that I'm in right now, and we're trying to sell it, but not so good so far. It's just not time yet. But I really thought that was going to be it. That way I'd just live in this house and just live until I got old. but Christ had other plans for me, and in 2010 he's like, all right, man, it's time to start your journey. And it just hasn't been the same since. It's been a rough struggle as a whole with your life on a spiritual journey, and it's a choice to be on a spiritual journey. It really is. So this video is kind of getting all over the place, so I'm going to get on track here. But at the end of the day, we are predestined, and we can have a beautiful destiny that awaits for us, that we can help others, we can change the world, and we can be an inspiration to others. That's part of our story. That's part of our creation when we're here, is being an inspiration and an influence. There's a lot of other stuff I'm going to talk about. I'm going to make a video tomorrow that's really going to kind of get more on a personal level on exploring the beauty of life and just being more mature and just looking at some of the things that I've been noticing of why life is the way it is. So we'll talk about that in tomorrow's video. So I'm going to go ahead and read up on some old things about making a deal with the devil. I tell you, man, the internet just is full of stuff. And, with Wikipedia, a lot of people say you can't always trust this stuff all the way, but there's a lot of good stuff on there. And that's where I get a lot of my research is from there, because it just kind of just brings everything together. All points of perceptions, viewpoints, whatever it may be. It pinpoints so many things. So we'll go ahead and we'll read about a deal with the devil. So it is a cultural motive best exemplified by the legend of Feast and the figure of Mephistopheles, as well as being elementals to many Christian traditions. According to traditional Christians' belief about witchcraft, the pact is between a person and some kind of entity or being. It says Satan or demon, but it's really just some kind of entity, because you don't know who you're talking to. You could be talking to a beautiful angel. You could be talking to a demon in disguise. You have no idea. And that's why I'm always very vocal about, you need to be aware of these spirits, of who you're talking to. It could be of a higher mind. It could be just an entity that's messing with you. Could be a shadow entity. It could be anything. Just because some entity comes up to you and says, "Hey, I've been sent by Christ. I need you to go do this, this, and this," and then at the end of the day, you end up finding out that this person did something horrible to their family, right? That's not an angel. That's not Christ. That was some kind of other entity. So you really have to be careful in that manner. So always question the messengers. The person offers their soul in exchange for diabolical favors. These favors vary by the tale, but tend to include youth, knowledge, wealth, fame, or power. It was also believed that some people made this type of pact just as a sign of recognizing the devil as their master in exchange for nothing. Just trying to gain some kind of worthiness, right? A lot of people will go into witchcraft or things like that because they feel that they are nothing. They feel they're worthless. That's where a lot of times where people get into drugs. Some of the friends that I've had were some of the smartest people, but they end up doing drugs and stuff because they either had a hard childhood, going through stuff, or they just got really bored with life. They didn't know where to go to in life. So they got into drugs, they got into drinking, they got into witchcraft and all this other kind of weird stuff just because they're experimenting. They didn't know where to go in life. They didn't have any kind of foundation. So they just kind of explore and see what works. And it brings friends along the way as well. It's very bizarre, but at the end of the day, like I said, there's always a reason why you explore something, you look into something, because it's going to benefit you in the future, and I speak from experience. A lot of things I went through, I had no idea that it would actually help people. It would benefit people because I've been there, so I can help people in many different walks of life. I've been through abuse and drug abuse and alcohol abuse and brain traumas and tragedies and all that stuff, just a mixed bag of everything. So anyways, let me get back to this here. So, it was also believed that some people made this type of pact just as a sign of recognizing some kind of master in exchange for nothing. Nevertheless, the bargain is considered a dangerous one, as the price of the fiend's service is the wagerer's soul. The tale may have a moralizing end with eternal damnation for the foolhardy adventurer. Conversely, it may have a comic twist in which a wily peasant outwits the devil. Characteristically, on a technical point, the person making the pact sometimes tries to outwit the devil, trying to win their soul back, right? But loses in the end. Men sells his soul for eternal life because he will never die to pay his end of the bargain. Immune to death penalties, he commits murder but is sentenced to life in prison. That goes a long way. I don't know why you'd want to have an eternal life. Why would you want to spend so much time here? If you were doing good and making help at the world, right? Eventually, like myself, I never want to live forever on this planet, because I'd want to learn and grow more. I want to know what's after this life. I'm ready to go move on and experience different lives. I've talked about my past lives before. I've been a liar and cat being many times. I have these distinct memories. Are they just fantasies or things like that? Or did it really actually happen? Or is it happened simultaneously? That goes into timelines and that, that time really doesn't exist, is that we have many different layers to our souls so we can experience these different kind of lives. There has to be some kind of truth within that manner. All these images of these lives can't just be some kind of imagination. Where do you think comic books come from, and video games and all that stuff? It comes from the imagination. It could have been somebody's life they've experienced. They give full detail. They give all of these characters, personalities, and whatever it may be. So, there has to be some kind of truth that there's something beyond this life. I've also been an Arcturian being. I've talked about my experience there as well. And I've also explained, to me, this is my first life as a human. I don't really have any kind of past life that I know of here. So there's something beyond this life. But I do also feel that as we're talking about selling our souls, I do feel that we do make pacts in those barriers as we transfer over, as we venture into the next one. We all make some kind of soul contracts, and just based on my experiences with the entities that I've talked to, we do make pacts. There is always a reason. I ended up coming down here to help humanity grow and develop. And I've done that from an early age. That's what I said, is that, I'm here to help change the world in some way, shape, or form. And I told myself that when I was 6 or 7 in a mirror. And now I'm just seeing that unfold right now. So, there is something for each of us. We make some kind of pact. We're not here just by some kind of accident. Our soul has a reason and a purpose. So we'll keep reading here. So, great achievements might be credited to a pact with an entity or the devil. From the numerous European devil's bridges to the violin, I don't know what that word is. Let's see here. We'll move down here. Let's see. It was useful thought that the person who had made a pact also promised the entity it always involves children. That's the fascinating thing. It sucks. It always seems that children are always involved. Even in the Bible, it was always talked about and how they always had to get rid of the firstborn to make their land good again, or so that there wouldn't be curses on their land or things like that. It was always sacrificing the children. And it's sad, and that's what it talks about here. There's always that innocence, the innocence that you have to let go. And it could be symbolic too, that we have to let go of our innocence, which would be our soul. Let's see here. Or consecrate them to the devil at the moment of birth. Many midwives were accused of this due to the number of children who died at birth in the Middle Ages and Renaissance. Take part in witches' Sabbaths, have sexual relations with entities. That's real stuff, man. I just ended up watching something about that. And sometimes engender children from a succubus or incubus. In the case of women, the pact can be oral or written. An oral pact is made by means of invocations, conjurations, or rituals to attract the entity. Once the conjurer thinks the entity is present, he or she asks for the wanted favor and offers his or her soul in exchange, and no evidence is left of the pact. But according to some witch trials and acquisitions that were performed, even the oral pact left evidence, namely the diabolical mark, an indelible mark where the marked person had been touched by the devil to seal the pact. The mark could be used as a proof to determine that the pact was made. It was also believed that on the spot where the mark was left, the marked person could feel no pain. A written pact consists in the same form of attracting the entity, but including a written act, usually signed with the conjurer's blood. Although sometimes was also alleged that the whole act had to be written with blood. Meanwhile, some demonologists defended the idea of using red ink instead of blood, and others suggested the use of animal blood instead of human blood. Forms of these included contracts or simply signing your name into Satan's red book, which is interesting. But I found it interesting how they said that there was some kind of mark that was put on your body. And that kind of reminds me of Cain, and how Cain was marked, and that everybody would know, that he killed his brother, and that he turned his back on God, that he went and tried to discover his own God, and that brought into the same conclusion, that it was, again, a sacrifice, it was a jealous sacrifice, according to the Cain and Abel story. But at the end of the day, it was some kind of blood sacrifice, and there seems to be some kind of pact that you make with your blood. That's what ticked me off, because there was so much, there's a thing that was going around, and it's finally died down that I know of this blood over intent thing, where you would use your blood and then you would write your will and intent into the paper. And basically you're signing contracts, and it's not funny, it really isn't, but it's just, no matter what you do, you're making some kind of pact. Hey, how's it going, Chris? Chris says, yep, the meat suit. Let's see here. But you end up making some kind of pact. With your blood, you are giving away something to this matrix. This matrix thrives on blood. That's why, throughout history, there's been so much of sacrifices, because they felt that that's how they pleased the gods. The connection with the Creator was lost, right? Lost for thousands and thousands and thousands, if not longer. They didn't know how to get connected back in with the Creator. So they had to start using blood rituals. Some kind of leaders back in the day just manipulated humans, thinking, oh, hey, we need to sacrifice these people because our land will be purified from the blood, and it must have worked, right? This gets into the elementals, and this gets into working with other entities, which I'll talk about here as well, because I've had many experiences in that same thing. Let's see here. Let's keep reading here. These acts were presented often as a proof of diabolical pacts, though critics claim there is no proof of whether they were authentic, written by insane people, which could be the case, believing they were actually dealing with entities, or just were fake acts presented by the tribunals of the, I don't know what that word is. Usually the acts included strange characters that were said to be the signature of a entity or demon, and each one had his own signature or seal. Books like the Lesser Key of Solomon gave a detailed list of these signs known as diabolical signatures. Now I'm going to have to go read that. That sounds interesting. The Malus Malefer, I have no idea what that means, discusses several alleged instances of pacts with the devil, especially concerning women. It was considered that all witches and warlocks had made a pact with some demon or entity, especially the Satan character, which makes no sense. I mean, if there really is an entity, I don't know if it would be the Satan entity, because that translates as the adversary. Or maybe, because, that's why I like listening to Christ and his story, with him being in the desert with Satan. Maybe we make a pact with elves. Maybe we choose that alternate lifestyle. You can choose to have a balanced state of mind. You can choose to help aid people and help people, or you can do the total opposite. You can allow the adversary to totally take over, and do everything, that you can just do the most horrible things ever because you choose to, right? You can choose to become the persona of the adversary. And maybe that's the pact you make, right? The pact of maturity, or the pact of being the adversary, the total opposite of yourself. And maybe that's what it means, making a pact with Satan. Could be. According to demonology, there's a specific month, day of the week, and hour to call each entity. So the invocation for a pact has to be done at the right time. Also, as each entity has a specific function, a certain entity is invoked depending on what the conjurer is going to ask. In the narrative of the Noepitic Gospels, Christ is offered a series of bargains by the devil, in which he is promised worldly riches and glory in exchange for serving the devil rather than God. After Christ rejects the devil's offer, he embarks on his traveler as the Messiah, and that's where Christ's spiritual journey begins. So it's really fascinating, and I really liked how this was presented here, because it's really it brings a whole new way of looking at this stuff. Is that we don't really realize all the praying. So many people pray of like, oh God, why can't I have this in my life? Oh God, can you make this happen? Oh God, why can I have everything I want? What is it going to take, God, for me to get to where I need to be at in life? Things like that. It's pleading, it's bargaining, with some kind of entity. If you don't have a source to go to, right? You're constantly Words are powerful. Words are magical. That's why I said with the blood over intent, people are writing in English and those words have alternate meanings. This English language should not be a language. It's some kind of magic spell. You go throughout the world, everybody speaks in tongues, right? Everybody speaks in tongues. That's the natural state of talking. This English language is not a state of talking. It's crazy. Let's see. Yeah, and Chris Garner here is talking about the silver cord. That's what I watched a little bit of Truth Seekers podcast today, and they were talking about silver cords. And that too is something I'd like to talk about as well, but that'll get me distracted here. See, Greg Scott says, dark is weak, light is righteous, love is strong, hate is based on anger, anger is from being hurt. You do the math. And it's true to an extent, but, at the end of the day, we really have to pinpoint what is darkness, We've been brainwashed to think that darkness is hell, demons, is Satan, and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, we're born of the darkness. When we're in our mother's womb, we're in darkness. We can't see. Our eyes are covered. We are born into darkness. And then, I don't know how you would pronounce that. You would return to the darkness. Okay. So darkness is an essence of creation, right? Before things began. It says even in the Bible, that darkness was there first and then the light. The light is a reflection of creation, right? When you close your eyes, you're in the darkness, in meditation, whatever it may be, you're in that sacred place, and then when you open your eyes, everything is light, everything is glamorous. I call it the Garden of Eden, right? The Garden of Eden is glamorous and everything looks pleasing to the eye, but it's also very distracting. So light can be false light and it can lead you astray from the Creator. The same way with love, love, is it a physical love or is it a universal love? There's many different things, Hate is such a harsh word, and that's just a persona as well. So you really have to dig deeper into it as well. English is language. It really is. Let's see. Nicholas says, are you saved by the blood of Christ? And that too, I really have a different... So Christ is my foundation. It always has been. Ever since I was a child, I always felt this presence with me at all times. This guardian, this protector, that has guided me through. My mom said that I gave my life to Christ when I was young. I don't remember it, but I've given my life to Christ many times. We all go through it where we feel that we let Christ down or we let God down. We made some bad decisions, and you really feel, since you're in the churches, you really feel that you're going to go to hell if you're not doing the right thing. So you plead and bargain, which is what we're talking about. You plead and bargain with Christ, be like, all right, please forgive me for what I did today. I didn't mean to do the stuff I did, please forgive me for I won't do this again, and things like that, pleading and bargaining with your soul, right? With your soul. And, we do this all the time. We make decisions. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. And then we start bargaining and we start wagering our soul. And, it really gets really tricky. It really does. Because at the end of the day, if you really don't know what kind of entity you're, talking to, you can start pleading your soul to another entity as well. So really is quite fascinating. Let's see, where else? So to answer your question, I just follow the energy of Christ. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I love that story of Christ, from the story of Christ, from his birth to his death. It was so very powerful. He taught people on how to connect back with the Creator. What was lost, You know, when the Old Testament was talking about all of these idol worshiping and sacrifices and things like that. And then Christ comes along and says, hey, you don't look outside yourself. You know, you don't need a building to go into. You don't need human doctrines. You don't need people to tell you who's going to save your soul, if you're worthy enough and things like that, right? Christ said, hey, go within, look within. I am the way, truth, and life. No one goes to the Father except through me. I am the power of I am within. And Christ said, you know, that you will find, if you find Christ within you, you will find the Creator as well. So, and that's my relationship with Christ. You know, it's not making a pact, but it's working together as that guide. You know, there is a main guide. You know, my experiences, since I've been exploring with entities, and things like that, you know, they're different feeling of spirits. You know, they're different forms of spirits. But the Christ energy, from my understanding, the Christ energy is something so much more. It's a love. It's like having a brother or a family member with you at all times. You know, they give you, you know, this energy source, this Christ source, has given me the best decisions, you know, of telling me, hey, you know, you shouldn't be doing this, or hey, you should look into this. Hey, you should make a video today. Some days I'll be like, all right, I'll make another video, and and then the Spirit will say, no, it's not time to make a video today. You know, you just have to listen to that. You have to allow that Spirit within you to help you, that mature spirit. That's the only way I can really put it, is that it is a mature spirit. You know, if there's a spirit that's aggressive, that wouldn't be a Christ spirit. You know, if there's a spirit that is trying to force you to do stuff, or just confusing the heck out of you, you know, that's not the Christ spirit. That's not the Christ energy. And that's the only way I can really distinguish it, you know, just based on my personal experiences with this entity, is that, you know, that is Christ. You know, do I feel that we have to give our lives to Christ? No, I don't, because I feel it's how would that word be? Our soul is it's a collective soul. I mean, we're one soul, but we're collected together. You know, that there's so many energies and entities that surround us daily. There is some kind of some kind of presence that really brings us to light, you know. And like I said, with my foundation being Christ, that energy, you know, I feel that is protecting me, that has guarded me from many other entities. You know, I've been in contact with a lot of different entities. You know, a lot of entities try to break that barrier. I talked about that in our previous videos, talked about how I had some really dark dreams of these entities trying to break through, but they couldn't, because my shield was strong, because of that strong foundation with Christ. So you really have to make a pact. You do have to make a pact with entities, but you have to make a pact with the right ones. And everybody has that Christ energy. They're born with that Christ energy, and they have to discover it. And it's really just part of that spiritual journey, is that you have to go on that spiritual journey, and be willing to have that spiritual journey, and that is your focus, is a spiritual journey. You can choose a physical journey or a spiritual journey. You can't do both. It says in the Bible, you cannot serve two gods. You have to choose a path, which that's where the pact comes in, you know, of making a contract. You know, are you going to make a contract with the Creator, God or Christ, or are you going to make a contract with the devil or Satan, or the Prince of Air, right? This Garden of Eden, or this Garden of Delight. You know, this world is very pleasing to the eye, and there's so many things that will distract you and keep you away from the soul, keep you away from the Spirit, or Christ within you. So many things are deceptive in this world, and it's very, very easy to lose touch with the Creator. You know, I struggled with it. in my younger years, and it really took a lot. I've always had Christ as my foundation, but at the end of the day, it really took that willpower and determination to stick with Christ and not to throw it away. There's always been some kind of spiritual journey in my life at the end of the day. So, yeah. Let's see. Nicholas says, do you believe he was Yahweh in the flesh? I really say as a whole that we can all be the voice of Christ, right? We can be like Christ. That's what I always tell people. It's not that we're here to worship Christ. We're here on this planet to be like Christ. And it says right in the Bible, it says that many people will come like Christ, but will do more miraculous things. He also warned people that there would be many that would say that they are Christ, and they are not. But there would be many that would walk like Christ and present the same message as Christ. So that would mean that we are Christ-like, and that's the choice. That's the choice of maturity. It isn't the essence. It isn't the essence of some kind of religion. Be like, all right, I gave my life to Christ. Life is good. I'm saved. My soul is saved. All right. No, you have to do the work. You're here for a reason. You can't just sit on your butt and just assume, everything's all hunky-dory. There's stuff that's going on. There's a lot of people that experience stuff I do with these entities that surround us. You see these entities on people, and they manipulate people. Some days people don't act themselves. It feels like you're in an alternate reality. Time stands still. Time goes fast. There's people you remember that they no longer exist. And things like that. There's too many weird phenomenons that make me more aware that there's something more to this. And I've kind of lost my train of thought where I was going with this. But at the end of the day, there is something. There is something. And I guess I can talk about entities. There's something more. So with entities or spirits that come in contact with you, you really have to sit down and find out who they are, what they are, and you have to go into a whole, what would that word be? Mentality, psychological perception of things, because if you're not paying attention to what these entities are here for, they can corrupt you, consume you, things like that, and it makes me look into like witches, and warlocks and how they manipulate, elemental spirits, right? Elemental spirits. And I always notice this every Halloween, and I talked about this, I think, in a video earlier this year, is that I always see a lot more crows around Halloween. And I always remember watching these Halloween movies, and these witches or these warlocks would always turn into what? Or turn into either a crow or an owl, a cat. Those three ones right there. And what do we usually end up seeing? Pretty rare you see an owl. I'll see an owl once, twice here and there, but I'll always see lots of crows and lots of cats. And that makes me really look at the practices of witchcraft in your towns and cities. It happens. It's real. It's not no mumbo jumbo make believe. Witchcraft is real. Warlocks are real. Making pacts with entities is real. There's proof of that. It's read throughout history. One of the more fascinating things, again, is the last of the perceived witch hunts, right? Because I talked about the witch hunts and things like that, was in Salem, was the last known area. And there's something very fascinating about that. Again, that's where I bring up Sabrina, that Netflix show, is that they talk about, that's where they're from, is from Salem. And that there is all of these witches that are just they're mad, and they are swimming in the ethers, right? They're swimming in the dark matter and the ethers. If you have a major impact on this world, your will and intent is really strong. You're going to be able to manipulate the structures of this reality. Like myself, I'll go outside, I'll put my hand on the ground, and I will pray. I will send healing energy to the whole earth, right? I will send it all the way to the core and all over the place. That's what I love to do. I send that healing energy. I can feel the energy. I can feel when people are sad. I can feel when people are depressed. I'm learning more and more is to send silent prayers out when you're out there. Put your hand on a building that you're entering, on a house, on a car. Send your will and intent. Send a prayer out. It allows, it just gives, what would that word be? Like a surge or an energy, charge to that, to it. So it has an impact in that person's life, has an impact on that person's life. And, it's up to them if they continue with it, but it's going to spark something in their mind. And I always notice that it works because people will change, their moods will change. Life will be different, whether it be in the work environment, family members, whatever it is, praying words, sending your will and intent out works. You can do that in a good way, and you can do it in a bad way. That's the power of will and intent. And that's why we live in the world we do, is because people make pacts with these entities. And a perfect example that I learned about is that we all can send out, people are going to find out about this anyways. That's the power of, it's the power of research. We're all learning on these elements. We're all thinking outside the box. We're looking past religion. We're having different experiences with the Creator. We have different experiences with Christ. We're learning more and more about magic, and magic is the foundation of everything, will and intent, things like that. So at the end of the day, you're also going to learn that you have these entities that will help you. Your will and intent is sent out. So these entities will help you out. They'll be like, all right, just like sending out, guard dogs or something, be like, all right, I got this invitation. I need you to go and deliver it. And then the spirits go out and they deliver it. And that's what I tested. And I talked about this with a Hawaii hurricane. I was like, all right, I'm going to put every will and intent to make that category 5 or 6 hurricane that was going to Hawaii and make it extremely low. And it ended up being like a category 2 or 1. I did everything I possibly could. And the spirit showed me that it's packs of entities. It's elementals or whatever it is you want to talk to them about. It's some kind of spirits that that help aid you. It's not just you, but the ether itself helps aid you. If you know how to manipulate the ether, they're going to help you out. And it's bizarre. It's weird. It really is. And I honestly have to say it's weird because I had never even thought that would really be a thing. That there was really entities that would go and help you. Right? And I didn't have to make no pact with them. Didn't have to sign no contract with them. It's how this world works. This world is a magical place of energy and synergy that surrounds us. All these physical objects are just humanly made, but what surrounds us is magic. It's all particles and atoms and whatever it may be. Carbon-based minerals and all this stuff. There's all these little microscopic entities an energy that surrounds us at all times. That's why my guides or whatever is teaching me that I need to start learning how to manipulate the energy as well. Just to kind of learn on how that works. But yeah, so realizing you can send entities out there is an amazing thing, but you want to have a good will and intent, right? Excuse me, because you can also send bad entities out there as well, and that happens in the world too. That's where these dark societies and stuff like that, they do their will and intent too. Can be evil, corrupt, greedy, and things like that. So they have their own witches and warlocks as well. Witches and warlocks never went away. There's so many people that know of witches. I've never met any witches or warlocks, but I do know that they are in my town. Conveniently living in the mountains. I don't know what it is about witches and warlocks living in mountains, but they always seem to live up in the mountains. But it's very fascinating. And another experience I've had, I'll read some scriptures here in a second, but another experience I've had with these entities, which made me more realize that they're real, is that these spirits will play in the trees. And I've talked about this in previous videos, is that these spirits will play in the trees. And I'll just see them jump in this tree over here, and they'll just make the leaves just move around. And I'm like, what in the world? And then they'll jump way over yonder to these trees over here, and they'll just kind of just move and make it look like a wind, but there was no wind. So it would just kind of pass through, and then it would jump on a tree over here, and then so on and so forth. So it was spirits just playing a game with me, and it was bizarre. And I showed my daughter it, and she was like, "Dad, you're crazy, man." And then she went back in the house. But it was interesting, it made me realize and see something that I didn't really become aware of. And it makes me look at wind different. It makes me look at thunderstorms differently. There's a lot of things, like with big wind storms. It could be a huge wind of spirits or entities pass it through. Maybe there's a huge will and intent or a different change of pace for the earth, right? The earth is a living being, a living entity. So all these packs of entities are just passing through. So when you're looking out the window going, holy cow, it looks like a hurricane out there. It could just be all these entities just passing through going, all right, it's a big swarm of invisible entities that are passing through. And it could be, I really feel that there's a lot more mysteries and things that we're not being told. Science will tell us one thing, but then the more and more we do research on energy and how all these molecules work and meditation and things like that, there's something more. Will and intent, that's a huge thing. And how we can manipulate ourselves, like myself, I'm in a place with a lot of people, so I always smile and say, hey, how are you? How's it going? Look people directly in the eye, and it can change their perception. They can be super down, and then I'll make them laugh or smile, and it changes their mood. It changes their perception. It gives them some kind of energy boost, right? And then you send a prayer with them, and then that can help them out in their life. It's very interesting. It really is. But as a whole, yeah, I've had so many experiences with these kind of entities and being able to physically see energy move things, right? I couldn't see the beings or entities that were there, but just seeing them, their presence known was very fascinating to me. So it's definitely some kind of realistic thing going on there. So so let me go ahead and we'll read some scriptures, and then I got to get out of here. But I tried to look up some key scriptures on contracts, and it really talks a lot about what we talked about today. So we'll go ahead and read through these, and we'll see where it goes. So Hebrews 6:17. So when the Most High desired to show more convincingly to the heirs of the promise the unchangeable character of his purpose. He guaranteed it with an oath. Proverbs 22:26. But not one of those who give pledges, who put up security for debt. These aren't going to make sense. That's why I don't like reading the little scriptures like this, because there's a bigger story to it. We'll read some more and we'll see if it makes sense or not. Matthew 5:37. Let what you say be simple, yes or no. Anything more than this comes from a state of confusion or comes from evil. And I think you really have to look at that as a whole. I'm not really a yes or no kind of person. I really want to know where you're coming from, right? A lot of people would be like, well, is it a yes or is it no? I'm like, well, sometimes, you got to think about it. Sometimes you might have to get back to them on it. Things like that. Making drastic decisions of a yes or no, can have a huge impact on your life. And that's where contracts and stuff can come in, is be like, if you say yes too prematurely, you can end up getting yourself stuck in a situation you shouldn't have got stuck into. So it's always good to question. Take your time, think about it. You don't want to take too long, because there's an opportunity there that you could lose. But I think you definitely have to take your time before you say the yes or no. Let's see, Numbers 30 verse 2. If a man vows a vow to the Most High, or swears an oath to bind himself by a pledge, he shall not break his word. He shall do accordingly to all that proceeds out of his mouth. And that's a powerful one there, right? You send out your will and intent of like, hey, I'm going to help humanity out. I'm going to be there. I'm going to do the best I can, right? And you make a pledge and an oath, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I'm going to quit this spiritual journey. I'm done with it. I want to just live a normal life. You're not going to be able to sit down with a clear conscience and go, hey, I can't do that. You're going to get guilt. You're going to be discouraged. You're going to, things can happen to you. So when you make an oath with yourself, you can't break it. You don't want to break it. And that's making good decisions. That's making bad decisions. Some people will make a pact with, like say a cartel or something like that. They'll make a pact and then they sell their soul and then they try to get out and then they disappear. And that's the end of it. So you really have to be careful on what your will and intent is, and once you pledge that, once you make a life-changing decision, which would be spiritual journey, or you get into something really harsh, like the FBI or a cartel or something like that, you're kind of stuck. You're stuck in those situations, and you're either going to disappear, or you're going to be sitting in guilt. When you're on a spiritual journey and you try to throw it away, you're going to be on a guilt trip, and life is not going to go the way you planned it, because you made a pact with the spirits, and the spirits will torment you at the end of the day. Not to scare you, but it's real talk. I mean, it really is. These spirits, they make sure you're doing your job. I mean, if I'm not making a video or something to help the world, the spirits will pester me and be like, hey man, what are you doing? They'll show me signs at work. They'll show me signs on the internet. Be like, yep, I need to talk about that right now. So the spirits will always be there for you. The good ones and the bad ones. But I mean, if you're listening to the good ones, the ones that are helping you and helping others, that's a good pact that you want to have. And that's a interesting perception you got to have. And this kind of mindset with the New Age movement and Team Light and all of this stuff, this is the next step. A spiritual journey is going to be something of the normal. And you're going to have to, at the end of the day, and this is where I'll kind of close this out later, is that you're going to have to make a pact. You're going to have some kind of creator you need to believe in, whether it's God, the Most High, universal God. You got to have a pact, okay? Or you need to have a pact with the devil or Satan, whatever. You need to choose a side, because with the perceived Illuminati and the Freemasons and things like that, their whole thing is, and that's why their whole New World Order and all that thing comes into play, is if you talk to a Freemason person, just from the testimony that I've watched, they say if you go into Freemasonry, it's because your life is chaotic, is chaos. So you're trying to find balance, you're trying to find peace. So you attach yourself to a creator, and you need to have a pact with a creator, because as this world continues to evolve and change, spirituality is going to be a part of the norm, and you're going to need to make a pact. If you're lawless and you don't make a pact with a higher creator or with the devil, you're going to be in this limbo world of the lawless ones, and there's not going to be no place for you. You're not going to be welcome. And it's going to be interesting because, a lot of like Christians, fear about, Christians being taken down and things like that. But it's the lawless ones that need to be worried. They need to be afraid. When you run a kingdom, you don't want to have a bunch of rebellious, lawless ones running around, because they mess everything up. They have no rules, no acknowledgement of anything, no organization. But if you're attached to a creator or a most high or God or of Satan, you have some kind of foundation in your life, so you're not lawless to an extent. So that's the key thing. That's going to come in the future. And that's something that not a lot of people talk about. So you got to have a pact with a creator. I encourage you to be with Christ and a higher power, but you got to have a pact with the creator, because that's going to be a huge thing in the future. That's something that's been on my heart for quite a while, and now I'm bringing it up. So definitely have to make a pact with the creator. It's not no mumbo jumbo thing. It's legit stuff. It's going to be a real deal here pretty soon. Let's see here. Genesis 31:44 through 54. Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said in his kinsmen, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap. And they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jager. I have no idea what that word is, but Jacob called it Gilead. Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me today. Therefore, he named it Gilead, and I'm sure that means something. Let's look it up real quick, see what Gilead means. I'm still writing Isaiah. I've been talking about that and how the spirits have been really guiding me to read Isaiah, but not just read it, but study it, research it, look at words. So I'm writing or rewriting Isaiah in a whole different way. I even the word snow, like there's a thing in there where it talks about that you're like scarlet and you need to become white as snow. Well, snow has a hidden meaning behind it, so it's really quite fascinating. Let's see what Gilead's definition is. The dictionary is the best book. If you have any books in your collection, the dictionary and the Bible, those are two good books you got to have in your collection, because that's going to teach you a lot about things. So let's see here. And that doesn't help me out. Oh, I guess it's the same thing. So Gilead or Gel, a wind with a speed of, so it's talking about wind. It just talks about wind. So they made a pact, so that would mean that, let me see here. So with the covenant that Jacob and, Laban made, at the end, Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me today. And they chose Galad, so therefore he named it wind or strong wind, right? The power of the wind. And that's what I was talking about with the spirits and everything, is the power of the wind. And that's what when you study the Bible, you have to really look at, when you see a weird word, you got to go, hey, what is that word? What does it mean? What does it represent? You know, is it an actual town in Egypt or Jerusalem or whatever? Or is there a hidden symbolism behind it? You know, what does Jacob mean? You know, what does Moses mean? Look into those words, and it's a word within a word. And the funny thing is that word in there actually goes with the story. It's talking about emotions and personas and things that they're going through. It's talking about nature, elements, things like that. You know, who would have thought that Gilead was talking about strong wind? You know, therefore he named it Strong Wind. You know, you know, a lot of people just don't see this or study this. You know, I don't know if they teach them that in like, you know, when people go to college and they study the Bible and stuff, I don't know if they teach them about the hidden doctrines or words and things like that in the Bible, but it's fascinating. You know, I never knew about that, you know, that these words, that there were hidden words within words. And as the Spirit is continuously showing me these hidden words in there, it changes the whole structure of the Bible, you know, and it gets on a personal level. Isaiah is a really personal exploration of the self, and just a personal encounter with the Creator. It's really, really fascinating, and I'm really excited to see, you know, read the rest of Isaiah to the end and see, you know, just looking at Isaiah through whole new eyes, you know, looking at the Bible through whole new eyes. You know, I really want to write some kind of different book, but I really feel Isaiah is going to be, whatever I write is going to help somebody, you know, it's going to be there for someone. So I'll definitely, once I'm done with it, I'll share that on these podcasts here. So anyways, so yeah, the power of words, man. Always look words within words. Dictionary is your best friend, man. It really is. Let's see, Colossians 2:14. By canceling the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands, this he set aside, nailing it to the cross. You know, and that's like I said, you know, we're all in debt in some way, shape, or form. Sadly, you know, is that, you know, our parents sold us to the United States, right? Our parents sold us unawareingly. You know, we're actually rich. You know, that's what the stock market is that they sell our contracts, or they sell our souls onto the stock market. That's what the stock market is. It's a bizarre trade. It really is. But when we feel that we're in debt, we're really not in debt. We're paying somebody else's debt. The lawless ones, we're paying their debt. It gets pretty deep on that level. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're going to be in some kind of debt. I mean, if you're going to get a mortgage or a car payment, you know, that's just kind of how it works. See, Proverbs 6:16 through 19. There are 6 things that the Lord hates, which is such a harsh word. 7 that are an abomination to him are haty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among his brothers and sisters. That's a powerful one, you know, and that's where, you know, I'm around people, you know, like that. I'm around narcissists. I'm around ego-driven people, you know, and it's crazy on how people present themselves like that, right? You know, and that's just how they feel life is. You know, they don't have any kind of spiritual journey or anything like that, so they feel they have to be obligated to speak the strongest or speak the most maturest, or talk smack about others to make them look good or feel better about them. You know, it's crazy to me, you know, on how people have that kind of mindset. You know, people have small talks and things like that whatever it may be, and to me, a lot of it's just meaningless conversations, without a spiritual journey in your life, you're just living day to day without any kind of foundation or element. You're just going to work, and then you get off work, and then you complain about work, and then you complain about others, and you just do that every single day. There's no kind of redemption or growth in your life. Everybody's mad at each other. It's ridiculous. It's a monkey world. So a spiritual journey is very important. That's why I always am very vocal about that. Spiritual journey, Christ is my foundation, and it makes your life different, and you have to evolve that spiritual journey too. It's not just something that's just real basic, right? My spiritual journey's been going on since I was little. It didn't really get serious until 2010, but as a whole, I've always been on that spiritual journey because Christ has always been that foundation. If I ever needed to talk to somebody, I would just sit down and pray and talk with Christ. Always, going through hard times, talk with Christ. Always turn to Christ. The only other person I really talked to was my mom. My mom has a very strong faith in Christ as well. So, I was able to physically talk with somebody about Christ, and that kept my foundation strong with Christ was through my mom as well. My mom, it would be considered an angel for me, right? An angel that takes care of her children. So with my mom and with having a personal relationship with Christ, it's changed my life, and it's continuously evolved my spiritual journey. And it's a choice. It's by choice. You can choose a spiritual journey, or you can just rebuke it and say, I don't need no spiritual journey. I'm just going to live a physical reality. Then you leave this world and you're like, oh, well, I guess I do need to go on a spiritual journey, because when you leave this life, what are you on? You're on a spiritual journey. Your soul leaves your body, and then you learn about the spiritual journey. You learn about that you're surrounded by spirits, and it gets on a deeper level. And it gives me goosebumps talking about that, but that's what happens. You leave this body and you're surrounded by spirits. You're surrounded by entities. Maybe you make pacts with beings. I don't know. I've had a lot of personal encounters. I try to choose my words wisely when I talk about them, because it confuses people. I don't want to scare people. But there is stuff after this life, and there is a lot of entities that surround us, both good and bad. And when you leave this life, you want to be fully prepared. I think that's a lot of where dream time comes in, is to remind you of the spiritual experience, to look at your life and see what you need to work on in your life, and then go forward, because when I had those entities and those dreams, and then after I talked about them, I haven't had those kind of dreams since. So, the spirits are telling me, hey, you need to talk about this stuff. Let it out there. And then there you go. It allowed me not to have those dreams anymore. So, there is something more to it. It's so very important to have a spiritual journey, and it's going to be a necessity in the days to come as well. Let's see, I got to end this video here. So Joshua 9:15, and Joshua made peace with them and made a covenant with them to let them live, and the leaders of the congregation swore to them. And you can make pacts with people too. You just got to be careful. At the end of the day, you definitely, anything you do, make a contract, because everything involves legal stuff. So making an act with a handshake doesn't work anymore. So you want to have some kind of legal binding contract. So then if they don't pay you or they don't show up, you can take it to courts and say, hey, look, I got his I got his signature here, and there we go. Leviticus 6:2. If anyone sins and commits a breach of faith against the Most High by deceiving his neighbor in a matter of deposit or security, or through robbery, or if he has oppressed his neighbor. You know what? Let me see something here. Let me read some of Leviticus here and see what it says. All right, let's go ahead and read chapter 6 here and see what this says here. Yeah, I'm going to read this and then I'm going to go ahead and close this out. We'll see what this says on here. So Leviticus 6, the Most High spoke to Moses saying, if anyone sins and commits a breach of faith against the Lord by deceiving his neighbors in a matter of deposit or security or through robbery, or if he has oppressed his neighbor or has found something lost and lied about it, swearing falsely in any of all the things that people do and sin thereby, if he has sinned and has realized his guilt and will restore what he took by robbery or what he got by oppression or the deposit that was committed to him or the lost thing that he found or anything about which he has sworn falsely, he shall restore it in full and shall add a fifth to it and give it to him to whom it belongs on the day he realizes his guilt. And he shall bring to the priest as his compensation to the Lord a ram without blemish out of the flock, or its equivalent, for a guilt offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord, and he shall be given for any of the things that he may do, or thereby become guilty. And that's where the whole tax thing comes in and things like that. The priest and the offering. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, command Aaron and his sons, saying, this is the law of the burnt offering. The burnt offering shall be on the hearth on the altar all night until the morning, and the fire of the altar shall be kept burning on it. Actually, this is kind of interesting here. Let's see, and the offering shall be burnt on it. And the priest shall put on his linen garment and put his linen undergarment on his body. And he shall take up the ashes to which the fire has reduced the burnt offering on the altar, and put them beside the altar. Then he shall take off his garments and put on other garments, and carry the ashes outside the camp to a clean place. The fire on the altar shall be kept burning on it. It shall not go out. The priest shall burn wood on it every morning, and it shall arrange the burnt offering on it, and shall burn on it the fat of the peace offering. Fire shall be kept burning on the altar continuously. It shall not go out. Man, that's crazy. And this is the law of the grain offering. Wow, that's crazy. So it's kind of telling you rituals of what to perform for different kind of circumstances. So the law of grain offering, the son of Aaron shall offer it before the Lord in front of the altar, and one shall take from it a handful of the fine flour of the grain offering and its oils and all the frankincense that is on the grain offering, and burn this as its memorial portion on the altar, a pleasing aroma to the Most High. And the rest of it Aaron and his sons shall eat. It shall be eaten unleavened in a holy place. In the court of the tent of meeting they shall eat it. It shall not be baked with leaven. I have given it as their portion of my food offering. It is a thing most holy, like the sin offering and the guilt offering. Every male among the children of Aaron may eat of it, as decreed forever throughout your generations. From the Lord's food offering, whatever teaches them shall become holy. And see, again, that's the kind of world we live in right now. I'm going to go ahead and quit reading that. But that pretty much narrows down to what I was talking about and how you make pacts with something, or just foolishly follow somebody. It's very easy to make a church. It's very easy to make some kind of religion, or say, hey, if you do these certain amount of things, just like with these altars, if you do these certain amount of things, you're going to please the Most High. Be like, well, if you do this, you're pleasing the Most High. How many people have we heard that say that, we're pleasing the Most High doing this, we're pleasing the Most High going to church, we're pleasing the Most High giving tithings. It's coming out of a human's mouth. of that. And that's the outside thinking mentality. That's thinking outside self. That's not how it works. It's an internal, a spiritual journey is within. And with spiritual growth is going to be within. Learning about energy and synergy and things like that is a development within yourself. The anointing of the oil, the anointing of the Holy Spirit will consume you. I always tell people, I'm like, if you ever want to know what energy feels like, it feels like, when your leg is falling asleep or your arm's falling asleep and you get that tingling sensation. That's how energy current works. You want to learn on how that flows through you. And then you'll learn about blockages within your body. You'll learn about the perceived chakras and things like that. It's an internal growth within you. That spiritual journey starts within, and then it reflects outside self, which therefore, just like on how Christ was in the desert, talking with the adversary or Satan, and how Satan was trying to plead and bargain with Christ, saying, hey, I want to give you all this stuff. And Christ said no to everything that the adversary said. Therefore, after that, he became the Messiah. He became the messenger. And that's what happens to us. After we fully go into a spiritual journey within, and we are fully cleansed, we heal ourselves, we learn the power of surrender, the power of forgiveness, all of this stuff, that full 100% surrendering ourselves or giving up our personas of what we think we are, and we live by the Spirit, then we become a messenger. Then we become a Messiah of our life. We have learned to save ourselves. We have learned to save ourselves. And then we continue on. And that is a hard thing to tell to people, to talk to people. So many Christian people or church, people who are just, whatever the Bible says is true and things like that. You tell people that you can save yourself, they're like, no, that's just foolishness. You have no idea what you're talking about. You gotta give your life to Christ. And that's the whole pact of things. You gotta be baptized in water, and you gotta go to church, and that's how you're saved, and things like that, right? That is a belief. That is a faith, right? If that's where you are, awesome. That's part of the experience. It's part of that spiritual journey. But to fully gain a spiritual journey is to fully learn about the power of surrender, healing yourself, and becoming your own Messiah. It's not ego-driven. It's that you've saved yourself. You're not swallowed in your own guilt, or you're swallowed up in the hardness of life or reality and things like that. You have fully matured in the self enough to be able to help people, be an inspiration to others, share your testimony with others. That's what a Messiah is. That's what a messenger is to help people, heal people, help people to create and mature in life, help people to begin their spiritual journey. And that's the whole message of Christ. That's what it is about. So many people are still waiting on this miraculous Savior to come down to save them all, when at the end of the day, say they pass over and they're sitting with all these spirits, right? And they're like, well, I made a pact with Christ, I gave my life to Christ. What am I doing here? Well, you didn't learn to fix yourself. You didn't learn the power of surrender. You didn't forgive those that you did wrong to. Well, I gave my life to Christ. No, that's not part of the game. You got to be able to make your own decisions. You got a mind to think for yourself. You got to learn the power of maturity and growth and everything. Well, that's not what the church taught me. Well, why you listen to human doctrines? Why didn't you go within yourself, just like the Christ character told you, to go within and have a personal relationship with the Creator? Well, that was New Age stuff, We aren't supposed to be doing meditation. That's magic. That's witchcraft. Well, that's foolishness. Why didn't you go and discover if that was the wrong thing? Why didn't you go and research it? Why didn't you look into it? People don't have that kind of mindset. The majority of people think that way. They think that when other people or pastors are on the spotlight, they think that pastor knows everything and that they're going to guide them to where they need to go. But at the end of the day, that pastor should have said, hey, that personal spiritual journey happens within. Everything is within. You need to have a personal relationship with the Creator. Go within yourself. This church is not going to help you with your personal walk. We're here to fellowship with one another. We're here to make friends or whatever it may be, but I'm not going to be the one that's going to save you. You need to save yourself. You need to learn the power of surrender, the power of saving yourself. You have to learn that. And it's so frustrating on my part, talking to people like that, because, so many people say they don't trust themselves. They don't know how to love themselves. They don't know how to heal themselves. That the human mind is limited and that we can't, a lot of the stuff we just can't fathom. So they just give up because they're like, it's beyond human perception. The only limitations in life is the ones that you create. Again, the only limitations in life are the ones that you create for yourself. Because if you never try something, you never look into something, you never explore into something, you're never going to know. So you limit yourself. Now you got to be mature and responsible when you explore into things, because you can actually, hey, have a good one, Nicholas. Thanks for joining. When you, oh man, I lost my train of thought now. I lost my train of thought. Dang it. That's okay. But at the end of the day, it's all about healing yourself. And, so many people just don't want to do that. They want to just have everything handed to them. And it's so very sad, like I said, so many people don't trust themselves or don't love themselves and things like that. Like I said, I lost my train of thought. I forgot where I was going with this. But at the end of the day, you got to have some kind of foundation. You got to learn about that internal beauty within us. That internal beauty that is inside us, and learning about the techniques of meditation, which is just another form of praying, right? For me personally, praying is listening and talking with Christ and the Creator. Meditation is walking and talking with Christ, because the power of meditation is the power of the magi or the imagination. You go into that state where you feel you're in another realm, right? The power of the imagination. You don't know if it's real or fake. It don't matter. But you get to have an encounter. I've had so many powerful encounters with the Creator or with Christ. They've looked very different, very unique. I've had very awesome personal encounters through meditation on how the Creator showed me what His presence is, or what the presence is, what Christ's presence is. They'll show you through forms, they'll show you through objects, through colors, through vibrations, whatever it is. Through meditation, you're going to see this. You're going to see it represented in there as proof, right? So many people look for proof that there's a Creator, a Christ, or whatever, and they look for the signs And some people will see those signs, be like, oh, I need $100 to pay rent, or I need $100 to buy groceries, right? They had that will and intent. It wasn't selfish, and then boom, the $100 showed up at the right time, right? And then they give thanks. They're like, oh, hey, thanks, God or Christ for manifesting this $100 bill, right? Sending that will and intent out there, saying, hey, thank you, universe, for presenting this stuff out to me. And we have to look at it like that. And I think at the end of the day, we really have to have a different mindset on this stuff. We really have to different mindset, that there's spirits that surround us. They're not demons. They're not angels. They're just entities that surround us daily. And they have their own characteristics, their own personalities, and they can help us or they can destroy us. The power of choice. And the funny thing is about entities is that they have to listen to you. They can persuade you. They can make fun of you, and they can nitpick at your what would it be? They can nitpick at your flaws in your life or at your past traumas. They can definitely do that to you, but at the end of the day, they have no strength. They have no strength to overcome you unless you allow them to. If you're into a real weak state, they can attach themselves to you and control you. But that would have to be a real weak state. Like I said, it's not to scare you, but it's just to let you be aware that these entities, there's a lot more to them, and you just have to just learn on how they work and how they can, how they benefit life, how they benefit, surrounding you. A lot of people say, they feel that they have their grandma or their granddad or, their mom or dad or brothers or sisters surrounding them at all times, they could be spirits walking beside you, or it could just be that spirit has that divine love, be like, hey, we're part of the ether. Your family members are part of the ether now. So we're all joined together. It's all a stage of unity. There's really, separation is an illusion. It has always been an illusion. That's something that I'll talk about in tomorrow's video, is talking about that. Separation, dividing, creating personas for yourself, keeping yourself away from a spiritual journey, and lying to yourselves. There's so many things that are being used to keep people away from a spiritual journey. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It doesn't matter, a title doesn't distinguish a spiritual journey. It's just a title, whether it's Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Moors, or Canaanites, or let's see, what else is there? Just all these different kind of titles. At the end of the day, it's just a title. It's not part of the spiritual journey. It's just a spiritual journey. When so many people say, well, I'm a Christian, you need to be a Christian too. I'm like, well, I'm on a spiritual journey. Christ is my foundation. And that's it. And that's it. When you're on a spiritual journey, it's going to either be an up, and you're going to learn and grow in your spiritual journey, or it's going to be a harder spiritual journey where you got to learn more about yourself. You got to learn how to dig yourself out of the grave as well. So yeah, so I'm just starting to ramble on here and there. I think I pretty much got the point that I want to get across, is at the end of the day, we have to learn on who we're making a pact with, who we're making a contract with. You got to learn on how to connect back with the Creator again. Christ is a foundation. Christ is my foundation. Christ will be a good foundation for you. If you want to embark on a spiritual journey, you gotta have some kind of foundation. And it gets deep, and you want to look at it in a lot of different layers, and not people are just not ready for it. And that's why people like myself, and my friends like True Seeker and Michael Basham, we're presenting this stuff out there, sharing our testimonies about these experiences in a whole new way. So it's not that we're titled something, right? A lot of the stuff could be considered New Age, Team Light, or things of that nature, right? But at the end of the day, it's just a spiritual journey. That's all it is, just a spiritual journey. But at the end of the day, you got to make some kind of contract with the Creator. You got to fulfill the destiny of your soul, discover that destiny of your soul. Don't live in the what if destiny. Gotta keep going forward in there. I like to play RPG games when I have time. I played them a lot when I was younger. And it was always that there was always this hero that was destined to save the world. It goes through the trials and tribulations, many game over things you got to see. So you got to retry, you got to level up and things like that. And at the end of the day, the hero prevails and life is restored and balanced. And that's what it's all about, is restoring your life, balancing your life, maturing your life, becoming the Messiah and Savior of your life, so then you can be a influence to others, a guiding light for others, a foundation for others, just helping people better their lives. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. That's what I'm all about, is to help you guys better your lives. Look at things from a different perception, learn about new things, new techniques, to explore into that spiritual journey, because that's what life is all about. I could not imagine life without, what life would be like without a spiritual journey. It can be a very dark place without that spiritual journey. It can be a real dark, depressing place to live at. And I really feel that's where a lot of people are at. So presenting all this new stuff out there, so when people do want to experience a spiritual journey, they don't have to focus just on a church mindset of things. They can learn what Christ was talking about in the Bible. They can learn about meditation in different ways, the do's and don'ts, what to look for. Entities are a big thing. Talking about entities is a huge thing at the end of the day. Man, I've been talking for almost 2 hours now. I gotta end this, man. Yeah, I gotta get out of here. But yeah, so anyway, talking with entities is a huge part of a spiritual journey, and distinguishing them is key. This channeling thing is just going to get blown away, because they don't know if it's true or not true, whatever. Channeling is going to have to go. At the end of the day, you're just tapping into the higher mind of self, the mature mind of self, the real you of self. You can reach that state of maturity and bring it out. You can still have fun and do what you like to do, but at the end of the day, you do have to mature in life. And if you're here to inspire people and help people on their spiritual journey, then you got to present that out to them, and you got to be mature about it. You can't just be like, oh, I channeled this person, blah, 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 blah. And then people spend $100 to watch you talk in a different language and whatnot of stuff you already knew within yourself. And that's what it should be as well. So I'm starting to have like these, there's so many ideas that I have that I want to present out there. I love to create a school and create all these new curriculums for humanity. That's the next step, but it's one day at a time. And I always have to tell myself that. That's what the spirits always tell me, is take it one day at a time. I have so many dreams and visions of what I want to see unfold, but it can't just be one person. It has to be a team. So, I'm continuously looking for a team to help me build something beautiful. We're at the beginning stages, and I really do feel that as this thing unfolds, whatever this destiny is building itself to, it's going to end up being something beautiful. It's going to be something special. So I definitely bring something different to the table every time I talk, and it will continue to grow more and more. So with you guys' help, and that's why I always encourage you guys, is to speak out your testimony, speak out your experiences, because it helps people. When people are looking into things with spirits and stuff, channeling, they need to have that alternate perception of things. They need to look at the Bible differently. They need to look at words differently. They need to look at what a spiritual journey is, what a spiritual journey can, what kind of encounters that they can have with a spiritual journey. It's uncanny, man. It really is. Life is so much more than we can even fathom. And that's real talk. I mean, it's unlimited. The potentials of where you can go within your spiritual journey, and it can take many, many lifetimes to even master or know what's going on. So yeah, so I keep talking forever. So love yourself. Keep shining bright. Thank you all for joining me in the chat room. Really appreciate it. Like I said, it's a continuous learning experience. I make these videos to help you guys to look at things differently, but it also helps me out. It's so funny is that when I talk about this stuff, I learn more about my spiritual journey. Things come up, the Spirit brings things up, of things, I never thought about. I'm like, oh man, that was a good idea. Or I'll read something and be like, oh man, that's a good idea. I never thought about that. And then I present that stuff to you guys as I'm live. And it's pretty cool. And then interacting with you guys, you have your own personal experiences that maybe some that I didn't think about. I'd be like, oh man, I never thought about that. So we all learn from each other. This spiritual journey is just an amazing journey. It really is. And it just continues to evolve every day. So yeah, I get to keep talking forever. So love yourself. Keep shining bright. I should be on tomorrow. I'm not sure what time, but sometime around tomorrow. So yeah, so love yourself. Keep shining bright. I'll talk to y'all later.